Just in
We
time.
are live,
Hello,
yeah.
everybody.
Just returned to the desk.
Just came back from a quick workout.
Welcome,
Hello.
everybody, to our second live stream from the new SAP Labs Munich office in Garching.
Whereas this is not the second live stream, this is indeed the first live stream
together.
When we did talk to Klaus Neumeier in the last episode.
Yeah, but I mean the first live stream together in one room with
that indeed,
Andreas.
and we did record the interview with Klaus Neumann from the new building. But so in every dimension, this is the first live stream that we do in person and the new building. I
like the setup, to be honest with you. I think it's a quite nice room, nice ambiente here. Basically, we're both live here, also in the same room, which is amazing.
For our frequent audience, this is not the Munich Urban Collab anymore. It's the SAP Labs Munich on campus with Technical University, and we have these beautiful new buildings. We have those comfy chairs, just as we did have in the Munich Urban Collab. We have some opportunities to arrange ourselves for Labs Talk.
Yeah, lots of space now. But hey, you already talked about the last episode, right? So there was with Klaus Neumann, the global lead for SAP Labs. So we discussed, I think, the global perspective of AI in the last show. Of course, all these shows are up on YouTube, right? So if you hit subscribe and if you visit our channel, you can still view them. But today we're talking about Web3 again.
It's Web3 again. It's blockchain. And we have a guest that is working with the Hanseatic Blockchain Institute, and Tom Haverland will be explaining research they did, right?
Exactly. I think it's the Web3NOW study that was conducted, I think finished at the end of the year, and we're still waiting for the final results. But we already talked to
Let's not speculate.
Tom. Let's bring him on.
Tom in.
Boom. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Hello.
Tom, how are you doing?
Good, very good. Thanks for having me. Have to say you did a great job with the office, with the new research lab.
Yeah, thank you.
Really like it.
Well, we didn't build it ourselves, right?
yeah, at least a little bit better than mine. So I chose a virtual background here.
Crazy. Very good.
Thanks. My name is Tom.
Tell us a little bit what you do, basically, and maybe also a little bit about the Hanseatic. So Hanseatic sounds like it's Nordic, right? It's up north in Germany. Hanseatic Blockchain Institute.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to start with a history lesson here, but the Hanseatic was like a union, or I would say an association back then. Was very important for the economics and was kind of creating a decentralized network of cities back then with the kind of the ships and the trades. And that's the reason why we have it in the name as well, Hanseatic Blockchain Institute. We are based in Hamburg. I am based in Hamburg as well. But we aim, of course, for more like the decentralized version. And that's why we into blockchain as well. And currently, this is what I'm doing here. I'm working on the W3NOW study, which is a state-funded research project. It started last year in March 2023. And we're still in the study. Like, we conducted a couple of studies. I will talk about this later, but the project is going to finish in 2 months, so we're still in it. And I'm happy to be here. Besides that, by the way, not only W3NOW project, we also do like our Blockchain Monday since a couple of years, which is just like online education. You can find a lot of the stuff on YouTube as well. And we have virtual episodes of blockchain education for everyone.
Very cool. And I just actually put the banner here. So it's web3now.de, right? Because I think you can, at this point in time, people who visit that webpage, they can actually download like a small version of the study, right? And the full version is coming in 2 months' time. But now we can already chat with you a little bit about which direction it might go, and maybe also some of the current results, basically, that you discovered.
100%.
Cool.
Indeed, but let's go into that topic a little bit. So with that W3NOW and that HBI, you undertook that study, and I understand you cooperated a little bit. You didn't do that on your own, but let's maybe just start. What was the goal? Why did you go for that? What help did you get to do that? And what were the goals? What is it that you try to get out of it?
For sure. So with the W3NOW study, we aim for creating a quantitative and qualitative data set that analyzes the blockchain adoption in the German industry and the German economy. So we all know about blockchain. We have heard about a lot of big projects, some of them successful, some of them failing. But to be honest, sometimes, especially for decision makers, it doesn't matter if it's politicians or in companies, decision makers, they need facts and they need quantitative data in order to make the decisions. So we aimed for exactly this, creating this data set, how much blockchain is actually being used in Germany. And for that, like you said, Andreas, we didn't do this only by ourselves. We cooperated with the IFO Institute, which is like located in Munich, and it's probably the most famous economic research institute in Germany. And we cooperated with them for the first part of the study. Then we created a second part, which we did ourselves with Statista. Statista is also a research institute in Germany, which is based in Hamburg. And now currently we're in the third part of this this whole project, where we kind of analyze the data and we create recommendations of actions. So we are state funded, right? We give this, the results are also for the Ministry of Germany, and we give recommendations of actions. How do we deal with this technology in a positive way? So how do we strengthen Germany's positioning and the blockchain adoption in the German economy?
Wow, so you really expect this to be used basically by the current government, for example, so they can strengthen the Web3 ecosystem in Germany. Did you already get some signals or positive signals that they are kind of waiting for these concrete next steps or something like that?
To be honest, a little bit difficult. Since AI was getting in everyone's mouth, blockchain technology is kind of under the radar, and also for politicians. And so, in contrary, I believe our results may, and also our recommendations of actions may, help them to identify certain places, certain scopes of actions that are actually needed and that are positive, to not only talk about this blockchain technology as a huge thing or whatever, but actually go specific as well and locate the areas where they need help and some areas where they don't need to help.
Okay. With that state funding, I would assume the scope of research was for Germany alone, or at least German speaking. It's still a pretty big market that you reached out to. Did you bump into any issues, problems when reaching out there, or did the EFO cover up for any of those limitations?
So yeah, it's 100% only German market, first of all. That's also the limitations of the results, of course, but we were interested in the German market at first. We need to talk about the three different parts that we did. First of all, we had like a representative survey with the IFO Institute. So the IFO Institute is conducting every month, they call it the Konjunkturumfrage. It's kind of an economic survey, and they do it every month. And in June 2023, we integrated the question about what is the state of adoption of this technology, and this could be blockchain, cloud computing, and AI. I also brought some numbers if you want to show them.
Yeah, let's show this now. Actually, that's a good point. Let me just get it into the screen. Here we go.
Maybe go on the other slide first.
I would need to go to the first slide. That's totally correct.
Here we go. That one. So these are a lot of numbers, but we don't want to go into detail here. But what we found actually, so first of all, the IFO Institute, the IFO study or survey is representative. It kind of creates a quantitative data set for the economic power of Germany. So it's not absolutely that amount of companies. It's more like, Volkswagen has more power, more economic weight than a small business. And we can see here, in terms of the blockchain technology, we actually have 3.2% in adoption, which
so there seems to be some way to go, actually, to be honest.
Exactly. Exactly. That's how I would put it as well. Like, there's a huge discrepancy between the amount of people who are, or companies that are, how do you say this, that know about the technology and that maybe also researching in the technology. I mean, there's also the discussion part, which is 18.7% that are actually discussing the application of blockchain
I think
technology.
that's called the knowing doing gap, by the way. That's how I once called it, at least. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. People know about the technology. People probably also believe in the potential of the technology, but they couldn't identify the actual use case for their own company. And that's where we are right now. And still, I found it interesting to compare it with the other technologies. I mean, we're talking here about blockchain, but in June 2023, it was half a year after ChatGPT was like released kind of to the public, 13.3% of the economic weight of Germany has already this technology in use, which is much, much bigger. And also with cloud computing, 46% have this in use. But I expected cloud computing to be a little bit more.
I also expected it to be way higher. And I'm wondering what does it mean to have AI, so künstliche Intelligenz, right? That's the top element here on the left side of the chart, and it means AI, künstliche Intelligenz, 13.3%. So that means someone
there must be some
has ever
adoption.
created a prompt with ChatGPT, probably. Is that in use, basically, right? But because I mean, it sounds very fast. I don't believe that 13.3% have really integrated, let's say, on an API level with their products, but I guess what you want to say is that seems to be way quicker, right?
Totally agree. It's probably just because of the ease of the application. Like, what is the killer application of blockchain right now that is comparable to ChatGPT?
Yeah. Well, something around NFTs probably.
Exactly.
Something that can be easily used, to be honest with you.
But still, I mean, because this, like all of these questions, we couldn't really find out with this data sets. Now we have like, okay, 3% of German economy kind of is using this technology. A couple of more are interested in it. But in our study, we wanted to actually find out what does it mean? How do you use blockchain? So we needed to go further. And that's why we created the second part, the second survey. We call it the W3NOW expert survey, basically, because we have a pre-bias panel. So we went to all these companies. It's the next slide, actually. It's already the next slide where we go like into all these companies. For in Germany, we try to identify all of them. We motivated them to participate in our panel. Obviously, not everyone has participated. So we got to consider this is a pre-bias panel here. But all of them are using, in some way, blockchain technology. And we were asking them, why do you use it, actually? And we can see here, like, the numbers again, that the majority of them were interested in actually using them in financial services. And especially
that's interesting.
Especially considering like 54% have this already in use. So the maturity of the blockchain adoption in financial services is exceeding any other adoption.
And now, maybe one stupid question. I hope it's not too stupid, actually. But when you talk about financial services, I immediately thought about banks, right? But then I remember Bitcoin, for example, and other blockchains. Well, they can also be used directly without a bank, right? So that's the whole point of actually blockchain, or at least of Bitcoin, that you get maybe sometimes rid of the bank. So this could also be companies who are directly integrating with a blockchain for payments without
100%.
using any traditional banks, right?
100%, yeah. I mean, that's probably the beauty about the technology, right? But most interestingly, I think a lot of banks are also nowadays kind of aware about this technology and also interested in applying this technology. Like, they are not ignoring anymore. Some of them probably still do this, but most of them, they know, okay, we got to deal with this technology, even though theoretically it's kind of avoiding the intermediaries. They still try to find a
kind
business
of competition,
Kind of.
But I'm really curious to figure out. I would love to see, actually, if you could at some point, maybe in a couple of weeks, or dig behind the numbers or look behind the numbers. How many of these 54% are actually banks? That would be super interesting, right? Is it basically the banks who fear to lose the market, or is it the other companies already that are taking on blockchain for these payment or financial needs, basically, which would be interesting to know.
The actual numbers would be interesting, but just to give you an understanding of the direction, it's mostly like most participants in our survey were like small businesses. So there were banks in it, but it's usually startups, and that's the whole landscape of Germany. Is still you have huge companies like big companies of Germany that are actually dealing with this in some kind of research. I mean, you see SAP as well, right? SAP also has their own projects as a big company. But then most of the innovation and the actual application currently is done in the startup space and very small business sake, and especially like the medium sizes, so medium businesses, which are very important to Germany's economy as well. They are not really present in the space yet. That's what we found.
Very interesting. Okay, so I think we kind of discussed that slide, and we have a third slide, right, which is actually slide 2 here. Let's maybe quickly switch to that one. What does it show here? So we have the blockchain technologies used in companies, I guess, yeah?
So now we need to think back. This is the numbers again of the IFO-Konjunkturumfrage. So this is the numbers of the first question that we already talked a little bit about, but this now focuses on the blockchain adoption and kind of shows or structures the data. Like in the first row, we see Germany at the whole, and then we see the different industry applications or industries. And especially manufacturing is kind of high in application or in use. So, which is, for example, I know the car industry, for example, and we see that manufacturing is a very important industry for Germany. So we see we can assume that this blockchain technology has a relevance for the German economy as well, because important industries in Germany are dealing with this.
Very interesting. And can you maybe speak a little bit about or did you figure out which use cases are being used here basically when it comes to manufacturing industry? So is this supply chain stuff, for example, or is it tracking resources or something like that?
We do not know this in this question, because this is the IFO-Konjunkturumfrage, where we only integrated this one little question: what state of adoption are you in? But later in our expert survey, we also asked, for example, for supply chain management, and it's also very interesting data in terms of that, because supply chain management again has a huge potential and people are interested in it. You can also see like a lot of consultants are consulting companies for supply chain management. So the industry is interested in using this technology there, but the adoption rate was kind of like 12%, if I'm right. Yeah, 12%. So kind of very low in terms of in our W3NOW expert survey, and hence it also shows that supply chain management there's this discrepancy between what is the potential of this technology and what do we do actually today.
So that really means that even though a lot of companies know about blockchain, they have not found the right way to implement it basically. So that could be an indicator that maybe blockchain is still too complicated, or
I mean, do you interpret these results as a huge potential ahead for the technology as such? I mean, from the top of my head, that manufacturing chart says 12% of companies already use and another 24% plan to use. That's just north of a third of all companies that at least use or plan to use blockchain. That looks like even those that are not using, a third of all companies plan to use blockchain technology. That seems like a huge potential to me still.
I totally agree, Andreas. I totally agree there. It is a huge potential, especially in this part, like in the manufacturing industry. We also asked in our expert survey, like, what are actually like the challenges you're dealing with, and it's not always the complexity of something, especially when we talk about manufacturing. It's not the daily users who's dealing with this technology, but it's more experts in itself. So the complexity is kind of okay. The problem is a lot of times regulation. Like, how do you deal with this technology that is still kind of unregulated, or you don't have certainty? And we also realized this with our people there and the people who participated, that even though regulation might be harming in some way, certainty is always better than uncertainty, because you know what to deal with.
That actually brings me a little bit to a third part, or not third. I'm not sure which part number we are with now right now actually. But we in the pre-chat we talked a little bit about MiCA, right? Which is this European regulation for crypto, more or less. And I was also looking a little bit in there. So let's talk a bit about actions, right? And what will happen with the results now of that study. So do you think this can be used by the German government, but also by European and maybe even global governments, whatever, basically to kind of create regulation that clearly defines what is okay to do with crypto and blockchain and whatever? Is this the goal? And do you see some hope here, basically, that this actually happens?
I wouldn't say that this the data set that we produce is enough to create regulation. That would be a little bit too too much. First of all, I would say definitely we need this. The study needs to conduct it a second time, a third time, because we need to see the evolvement. We need to compare our results with previous studies. Currently, we just have a sneak peek into one moment, right? It was just December 2023 when we conducted this expert survey, and June 2023 when we did the IFO survey. So we need more data there, but I believe it gives people direction. It gives people data in order to argue in favor or against certain regulations. And what we saw, for example, I mean, I'm not a big expert on regulation or MiCA itself, but what was really interesting, what people demanded in our expert survey was the policy or like the regulation tool of regulative sandboxes. That's the thing. Like, the European blockchain sandbox for regulation that is happening right now and that is already kind of performing well. And our people, I say our people, but the participants of the study, that's what I mean. They also demanded. It's like everyone in my back. No. Kidding. But they demanded that we need more experimental freedom, but in a controlled way. So we need to have this conversation between regulators and economy and companies, because together we need to learn how to deal with this. It's not like just top-down approaches from our government that we need. We need to have conversation on this, and that's happening with the European regulatory blockchain sandbox, and we need to do more of this.
And how do companies actually get into that sandbox? So I mean, so the sandbox really means if a company is being added to one of these, let's say, crypto blockchain sandboxes, they have the right to actually do what they want to do with the blockchain, right? They have more or less regulatory freedom to do that in an experimental context, I would say.
I mean, freedom in a controlled way, right? So that's the thing. You can set standards together, and the regulators have always oversight and transparency in what you're doing. But at the same time, they give you allow you a little bit of freedom to experiment because they need to learn as well.
Yeah, I just realized it sounds to me like the most active form of lobbyism. To answer, just like you kind of do something, experiment, and I mean, you're basically in the boat with the government.
You end up with some results, but some of the results, I guess, are the survey that you did, and that would serve as input to any regulatory actions. In blockchain as such has been tainted in the past, being intransparent. Am I wrong to assume that your survey adds to regulatory actions that leads to more transparency in the entire market?
What do you mean with transparency in the entire market?
Like business models for that vendors acting in the market using blockchain technology would be more transparent, more understandable, more tangible for consumers, for customers.
So to be honest, I personally believe that there's a need for that, 100%, to have more transparency in how this used, especially because you have a complex technology that not everyone understands and will know. It's naive to believe that everyone was going to understand this technology. So I believe there's a need for this more transparency, and I hope that these results as well will push a little bit more for that.
I think that leads to a very interesting other topic, which is federated AI. But the way I get there in my brain right now is actually, so decentralization and blockchain is it might not be the right thing to do for a big monopolist. Let's put it that way. And that's what you just talked about, right? If you're a big player in the market, you own 90% of the market. You have no interest in decentralization, basically, right? You want to have it centralized. Everybody's using your services. And so decentralization is one way to actually maybe also strengthen the small and medium players in the market, because there's more transparency, there's more equalization and stuff like that. And that leads me to blockchain and artificial intelligence, which is also one topic that we discussed in the pre-chat. I think the big topic here is federated AI, and how can blockchain and AI work together and maybe create a more level playing field for companies to use AI. So what are your thoughts on federated AI here?
So basically, the main point here is we are currently living and developing in an AI landscape that is controlled by a few big actors, and it's incredibly difficult, even more difficult than in any other digital realm, to participate in this in a sovereign way. And we see just a very few companies from this in Europe. Most of them are from overseas, which also gives you in a developing global landscape less sovereignty for Europe, right? So what we say basically, and we wrote a report for that for the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, can highly recommend reading that. But what we said and what we argue is that in order for Europe and the companies in Europe to participate in a sovereign way and develop their own AI models, you need to have decentralized learning, because we in Europe, we have a lot of companies, decentralized economy, and they have decentralized databases. So all of the data silos that are working for themselves, but they are not shared. And we don't have a Google in Europe or whatever. So we don't have these huge data companies. With all these data from all these different companies, we could train AI. All by themselves cannot. So if I'm just in my own company and I only have my data, the AI that I train will be bullshit. So I need to have a diverse data set in order to have good AI. So we need to really put these data sets together, and still in a privacy preserving framework, because we are in the EU and we have privacy preserving regulation, and for a good thing as well. So blockchain can help here to actually connect in a privacy preserving way the different companies and the data sets in order to train together a federated AI system, a decentralized AI system. And I believe, from my state of mind currently, it's the only way. I don't see another way how Europe can actually participate in the AI race in a sovereign way.
Okay, very interesting. And that would mean that these companies are really connected, or could maybe, I'm just thinking out loud, basically, in a first step, couldn't the governments of the EU actually connect their data sets, for example, as a first step? So we have this IFO Institute, but we also have whatever big government organizations that are tracking, of course, the activities of the economy. And that happens on a EU level, I guess. So we have a lot of EU institutions basically that are doing that. Couldn't we maybe, at the first step, more or less collect the data and train AI based on that data sets, and then later on actually
But the beauty, I mean, you could do that like this, but then you centralize something again, and the technology is here. Like the only reason why we don't have federated AI and decentralized AI is because the companies are not adopting the existing technology. We can make blockchain data marketplaces that trade data in a sovereign way, and that also trade algorithms in a sovereign and privacy preserving way. That is possible. It's the companies that don't cooperate yet. And actually, a lot of companies are cooperating. It's growing quickly. So I believe you do not need one institution to govern this this marketplace or this network, because we have this blockchain. The blockchain is basically the central institution, if you want to say like this, and this is connecting all the participants and the stakeholders. And the SAP could cooperate just like the Handelskammer or the IFO Institute or the government agency. They can all participate in this network together.
Is it maybe a question also on say commercial offerings, like when you say the technology is there, like it's to me, maybe you guys into crypto might disagree, but it seems like that technology is there and it's all decentralized and everybody can use that. But then again, because it's so decentralized and so free, there is no particular offering. There is not enough product offerings that would give those companies that need to adopt that technology a product that they can buy off the shelf. Isn't that kind of the gap that needs to fill? Not just regulation and all of that, but also the commercial offering.
It's a very interesting point, and I think that's the dilemma. I don't know if that's an English word, but dilemma of the whole decentralized ecosystem and industry, because you need to have centralized actors and you need to have commercial offers in order to push something. But how do you push something if you don't have a centralized entity that pushes something? And here again, you need to have a centralized thing that starts something, and it can be decentralized afterwards. But I believe the product itself exists actually, because the product itself is the data that is lying in your data silos in your own thing. You have everything as a company. All you need is to connect to this data place, and then you need someone who's interested in this data. And that's the big question: who's going to use this data? And I believe a lot of startups or small companies that are very smart in AI technology, that have created algorithms that have the potential to transform industries, but they don't have access to data. And I believe they exist everywhere in Germany and Europe, that you have these smart researchers that cannot apply that technology. And that's why those people will want to have access to this data. So you as a company, you just need to provide this access.
It's easy to be said for a company, just give away your data. That's easy advice. But apart from that, Tom, maybe as a final topic, what is it really? What are the steps that are necessary to get all of this going and to get into it?
I certainly believe we need to have more conversation between regulators and economy, companies. That's what I said before, because the biggest output, I believe, right now is this huge discrepancy of what we have and like what we do, like the awareness of this technology, but what kind of use cases can we build? And in order for that, because one of the biggest challenge is regulatory uncertainty, we need to create better regulatory frameworks, and we need to do this in conversation with the companies and those who adopt. And also we need to go a little bit further than just financial industries. So especially for like manufacturing, whatever. What about the like machine-to-machine communication and like the Internet of Things? This is a huge potential application scenario for the blockchain as an autonomous governing framework, but it has not reached regulatory awareness yet. And so we need to really get further here in order to support further research. That's the biggest step ahead. And I believe that the results from our study, they outline this in a quantitative way. So we can talk about opinions and whatever, but there is actually data that proves something. And that's the beautiful thing about this data set. It doesn't matter if you're a politician, a decision maker in a company, or just a crypto interested guy. You can use this data. It's public. Not yet. A little bit of this is public yet, right? You can go to the website. You can go to the website. You can download the first report, but be aware it's just a little bit a chunk of the data. The most of the data that we have will be published within the next 2 months, and
awesome.
So be aware about this, and then you can just use it and go and argue.
To me, it sounds like we might actually talk soon again. So hopefully we will. Once the study is out, be sure to ping us, and we can also launch it or just push it by our channels. And this was really cool to talk to you.
Yeah,
actually. I think it was
really.
hopefully it was really an informative, data-packed final episode of this Web3 series, actually, I believe. Way less chaotic than the last episode in the Web3 series.
It was way more structured than the last, and it was a lot more focused. Tom, thank you so much for sharing your study and the insights you generated. Really appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers to Hamburg.
Cheers to Hamburg.
Cheers to Munich.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.